Good evening and welcome to tonight's show from DJNTV, Disc Jockey News TV. Tonight's show is brought to you by Electra Voice, DJ Event Planner, DJ Trivia, Odyssey Innovative Designs and Cases, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, and the DJNTV Insiders.
DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
And he always does this to us again.
I know. And Shady's not even here to appreciate the jumping into the middle of the conversation.
Yeah, we're starting talking about something else, and he goes, "Oh, by the way, here we go. 3, 2, 1, now, go."
No, we're live right now. Okay, that was fun.
Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, you're catching all the fun, and this is part of the show. This is part of what makes us us, I guess. But anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. It is a Monday night, and if you noticed, we've got 2 of the 3 amigos here. Shani is unfortunately not feeling so well tonight, so she's got the night off, and so therefore we can't really do what's on Shani's mind because it'd be full of obscenities because of how she's feeling. No, I'm just kidding. But no, really, in what we got, John kind of presented this idea, and we decided we definitely want to run with this. 5 things that beginner DJs know, and that started where it started, and I think our list is up to like 5 apiece, and then we got some bonus ones to throw in. So we got some great stuff for you tonight, whether you're beginning or whether you're advanced. I guarantee you there's probably some nuggets that you haven't thought of that you maybe need to go back. It's all about that, that refresher that really kind of helps motivate us and keeps us going. By the way, before we get into it though, a big shout out to Rick Webb and his show that was on here for us. If you did not get to check it out, even if you don't do school dances, just to kind of rethink about how you might go towards some younger events. Oh my gosh, like how he structured that, and he talked about his setups throughout the night. Programming 101, but so great. So, dude, good job. All right. So on that note, John,
let's jump into
it. We
went
high tech tonight on us.
Yeah, we are. We're actually going to be doing a slideshow tonight. For those of you who are wondering why we're Dan's above and I'm down below instead of side by side, we're going to try something a little bit different with some of the shows once in a while, so it's easier to follow along. Yay! Pretty much no, so it keeps us on track. So our shows tonight, we're going to talk about things that every beginning DJ should know. And the idea is I started out and we started making a list of 5 things. And then 5 became 7, became 8, became 10, became more. So Dan and I both basically put together a list of 5 things that are things that when we first started out, it would have been nice to know that back then, compared to learning it the hard way over the years. So for those of you who are getting into this and you're watching this and you're just starting and such, we're going to be covering some topics that are things that you have already run into or you're going to run into, and we're hopefully going to be able to save you some time and brain energy and not having to deal or think your way through some of these things and having that stress of them in your life. So number 1, I've got the first one here, Dan, with the ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC. CSAC, I believe it is. Basically, for those of you who do not know, what these are the music licensing divisions. You pay a fee, a venue pays a fee to be able to license the music to be performed in the venue. DJs do not need to do this unless, there's one big unless, if you are charging at the door and you are the promoter or putting on of the event. So if you're renting the facility and you're charging a fee to come in and listen to you play the music, you then become responsible to all three of these, not just one, not just two, not just three, or all three. This is something as a young person, and we see this on chat boards all the time, Dan. I mean, just last week, it was, again, a lot of confusion. It's really quite simple. Venues have to pay. They're the ones who would be responsible, not us, unless we're the ones that rented the facility and we're charging at the door. How many times this has come up over the years?
Well, it goes around and around. And basically it's the fear that you're going to get busted because the music, I think it really, to be all honest, I think it starts because people are using music that is not 100% straight up. And they're fearful that it's going to come back and bite them. And then so somebody says, well, if you got this license, then you're covered. And so somebody's like, okay, well, let me go buy the license so I'm covered, only to go, they're not going to sell you the license. Like as Joe Schmo DJ, they're not coming to you unless, as John said, you're promoting an event, which just made me realize I need to take care of my contract a little bit better for next year's event.
Yeah, you better do that. And of course, this is in the U.S. In Canada, music licensing is a completely different story. For those of us in the U.S. and haven't checked out the Canadian version, they've got some really cool things that they can do and license their music, which is a limiting factor for some of the DJs getting into it. So yay, the Canadian music side is something to kind of envy a little bit from the U.S. side. And of course, they probably envy the way we can steal things, down here. I mean... But anyway, so the key thing to remember is the only one you'd ever really be concerned about is the RIAA, but they haven't done anything with DJs since they busted Complete Music 17 million years ago. ASCAP, BMI, SESAC, these companies will not come after you unless you're promoting. They will come after the venue, and they will find the venue, and they will find them tremendously. And these companies have the power of God when it comes to that. Electrical inspectors and these three companies have got power. They're unbelievable. They can shut you down in an instant, and they can charge you whatever you want, and you have nothing to. The venues have very little recourse but to pay. So, for DJs, we don't need to worry about it. Dan, the next one is coming from your list, and yours is the buy once and cry once.
Yeah. So basically, one of the things that I wish I would have known when I got started was this idea that cheaper is not always better. So sometimes it's better to save, kind of build up what you can, and then buy that quality piece of equipment rather than jumping in and buying something low quality only to have to a year down the road replace it. Maybe not even a year, depending upon just how cheaply made it is. The adage "buy once, cry once" is meaning you're going to cry because you're going to spend a lot, but it's better to do that one time than to do it every year after year after year. The one thing that I said that statement because this is something that I've heard and it was taught to me, unfortunately not till later on, but it was something that was taught to me. But I think there's also got to be a balance with that. And what I mean by that is you don't want to jump into, and I think you're going to touch on this a little bit later, John, but you don't want to jump in over your head as far as what you're purchasing because you want to buy that big system or that big piece of equipment when really there is a building ground. So when you're talking about buying quality, make sure it's also within that realm. So, and the example that I'll use is when I got started, I went and I started out with Gemini equipment. Gemini is a great company, but at the time, there were better ones out there. I just couldn't afford them. So that was what got me started. So I started with quality that was at a good budget for me. And then rather than waiting and jumping right away, I saved to where I could make a bigger jump.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense, and that's another one I wish I would have learned because as you're talking about this, I'm envisioning all the lights, all of the garbage lights I have out in the other shed. That if I would have just waited and either rented or what have you, and then just invested in some higher quality moving head fixtures, which I did about 6 years later. Once I got into the first Martin 812s, it eliminated 2/3 of my light show. And it would have been just easier to buy those in the first place, but didn't do it that way. Okay, so that was number 2 on our list. We'll continue to the next one here. This one is one that I did not learn until probably about the 5th year or so of my DJing. The practice is your friend. When I first started out, the idea was, hey, we're playing music. We're just out there playing songs, and you pick as long as you're picking the right songs, everyone's happy. And then you learn the idea of sets, and that music can go together, and you can create something in a feel and a flow and what have you with your music. And you can't do that just by looking at some songs on a list and then playing or just pulling it out. You need to listen to a song and think about, okay, what can go next, and what can give me this feel? If I want to go this direction, or if I want to change key or change tempo, these different things are things you need to literally practice with at home. And then you add into the whole concept of different mixing type techniques that MJ shows and teaches. Those are things that I had a little of that, just a sliver of that, but I've added so much of that over the last 3 years to my show, and it's something I actually have to practice on a regular basis. Now, I don't practice as much as Michael does, because Michael's up there creating incredible sets, and he's hitting, he's doing I think he had like a 25 song set that he did for prom this year. As he called it, it was engineered for dancing. And it was good. It was a good set. You guys are going to be able to hear that at the DJNTV Insider event in Atlantic City on Tuesday, August 13th, during DJ Expo. But practicing is something that is your friend. You need to make the time to do that. Even if you're a wedding DJ, you're going to find that practicing some of your transitions and putting your songs together, finding the exact, setting cue points and figuring out is going to make things so much easier.
Let me also add, you can practice and not broadcast. So what I mean by that is I have a lot of friends of mine who get this idea. I'm going to jump on my turntables, or I'm going to jump on my controller, and I'm going to put it out there in Facebook world or stream it or something like that. And it's legit a practice session. I have yet to understand what purpose that serves. So.
And I can see if you were practicing some mixes, like, okay, I've got this mix and I want to show some of my friends and say, hey, what do you guys think of this mix? But I've seen some of them too where it's been like, I don't think I would put that out in public. That was bad.
Not the first time you try it.
Yeah, no, not the first time. Okay, the next one, Dan, is yours. Talking about workshops, some of the best information.
Yeah, so this is something I actually just started to learn about. I would say probably within the last year to 2 at most, and that's this idea of workshops. For the longest time, I didn't even really know that education in the DJ realm even existed. When I got started, it was it was kind of like I just jumped into it and kind of did what my friends taught me or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I started learning about expos, and I started learning about, there's these great things called seminars, and you can go and you can learn. And I'm like, this is awesome. And then I saw some stuff about workshops, and I'm like, that's great. They want how much? And that was like literally like that. I know I'm not doing that like that. No, I'm going to stick to my seminars. And then I finally just bit the bullet and said, you know what, I'm going to take a workshop. And oh my gosh, like the night and day difference. Like seminars are great. There's a lot of great content. You're going to walk out with it. But in the trainings, in the workshops, you're getting so much hands-on. You're getting critiques. You're getting smacked in the face of realizing the stuff that you're doing wrong and need to fix. And the best workshop leaders are not going to pull any punches, and they usually don't. That's why they're the best. So definitely take that step up and get into the workshop realm. Yeah, again, it costs money, but if you talk to any of the guys that are top in our craft, they are going to say that they learned how to be where they're at in those workshops. For sure.
And that's not only workshops in the industry, but there are some outside of the industry workshops where you're on speaking, voice, improv, singing, stage, workshops for acting. All of these things can add to your repertoire of tools that you're going to be using on a regular basis. So good point there with workshops. Continuing on, the next one was going to kind of build off a little bit with the buy once, cry once. This is the credit cards suck, is the way I kind of narrowed this down. But credit cards are really not your friend. Yes, they are a tool that we have to use. And if you use them properly as any tool, you're going to be successful, and you can be successful with them. But they're too easy, especially early on when we're younger, to get to the point where we're like, oh my gosh, I need that huge sound system and I need it today. without really putting a lot of thought into that. Okay, can I pay for this? Will this sound system pay for itself over a period of time? Will it enhance and allow me to charge more or get more events? And a lot of that, we're basically doing it on a want, as far as, oh, I want that sound system. Really? Will it do anything? I'm sure it will. I'm sure I now can do big events because I just bought this Bass Boss system that cost me $12,000 for 4 speakers. No, you probably don't. If you you don't have a plan to. So taking it out on a credit card and then having to pay that 15 to 20% interest for the next 18 months because it takes a long time to pay for it, not a good plan. Credit cards can be used and can be useful, especially if you have you talk to numerous people who go out and they sell that item. If they're going to add a photo booth, let's say, they go out and they sell it for the season, and they can take the retainer money that came in and they can put that in the photo booth, and they know that, okay, I can then charge the balance of the $2,000 and I'll have it paid for within 45 days or 60 days, whatever. That makes sense. It's the times when you're having to carry that credit card debt, especially through a slow season. Oh my gosh, that's just one of these cringe killers, a cringe moment. I wish I would have learned that, because when we expanded and such, we expanded much of our DJ system between line of credit, DJ company, between line of credit and credit cards back in the early days. And there was things I did that I shouldn't have done. And this is one of those areas where I don't make that mistake that way anymore.
Well, it cracks me up at how many DJs will, want to pay the cheapest that they can. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the exact same product from company A to company B, they want the cheapest that they possibly can, but then they'll throw it on a credit card, which will charge them interest, and therefore then not give them the cheapest, will give them the most expensive. And yeah, it just, no. Be smart about your credit cards, and financial reasons 101. The more credit cards that you have, it actually hurts your credit score.
It can. It certainly can. So you gotta be smart with that.
Yeah.
So going from credit cards are not your friend, Dan, yours is the next one. Is the mic is your friend. Kind of explain that.
Okay. So one of the things that I think a lot of people, when they jump into DJing, they jump into this idea, I'm just going to play music. I'm not going to talk at all. I'm going to stand back. I'm just going to play music and not have any vocal interaction. And our job has transitioned away from that so much, especially in the mobile realm, to where you need to have some interaction. You need to have, whether it's hyping, whether it's announcements, whether it's formal MC abilities, formal master of ceremonies abilities, whatever happens to be the case, you need to be able to have mic presence and use it efficiently. But the other half to that, the other part that didn't quite fit on our slide was you don't want it to be your best friend. And what I mean by that is, when you talk to your best friend, you talk to them a lot. Like, you talk to them nonstop. You talk to them for hours on end, or you text them hours on end, whatever happens to be your relationship with your friend, but you're doing it too much. And I've seen kind of the other side of that coin, where some beginning DJs will talk in between every song.
Yep.
They'll announce every song like they're a radio DJ. And learn how to have that respect, learn how to have that proper flavoring. Even if you're like, Arnaldo Offerman has often talked about the fact that when he hypes, he does a lot. Like, he uses it as a spice, and he's like, I love Cajun food. Like, I love a lot of spice. But even he would agree that there is such a thing as too much for non-purposeful talk. Mm-hmm. So friend, not best friend.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it. And if you're one of these DJs who doesn't use the microphone, which most of us are when we first started, this is an area where you can practice. And we've talked about this in other videos, how to get better when it comes to the microphone and getting ready for the microphone. I think I had a video I did about, maybe that's in the insider area, where we talked about some tips for being better on a microphone. I don't know. Go to the DJNTV.com and search for microphone tips, and you'll find some of the videos there. I'm sure it's there. Okay, the next one is kind of about talking about relationships here, and DJing will change your relationships. Dan, as a married family man, when you started dating, and you basically you were getting to that point where you were engaged, it changed the relationships with your friends, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Once you were, why would Dan and Siri sound the same? So then another change, then once a person is married, that changes relationships with friends and such. Then when you start having children, it changes relationships and such. The similar thing can be said in the DJ industry, is that if you have relationships and things beforehand, whether you're married or if you're single, once you start DJing and you're out there on a regular basis, there's numerous changes that will happen. If you're married, there's going to be that now you're gone every weekend. And your spouse is sometimes very supportive, sometimes very resentful that you're now gone every Saturday, Friday and Saturday, what have you, because they want to do something on their night off. And that's going to change that dynamic a little bit. You're going to have to find a way to deal with that. If you're not married and your buddies are there, well, you used to go and hang out with your buddies on Saturday nights. Now you're working on Saturday nights. And for a little while, they're going to come with and be your posse. But over a period of time, they're going to be like, hey, let's go to that bar. And it's like, well, I'm working over here and I can't go there. Those relationships are going to change and evolve. And it's more of an acceptance thing to a point, and understanding that it's going to happen, and that in some cases you're going to have to really work at that relationship, especially if you were married first and now you've added the DJ part of it. And if they haven't lived that lifestyle or experienced that, it's a very difficult thing for a spouse sometimes, because you're now that rock star who's out in front of the audience. And sometimes in that position, people are hitting on you or flirting with you. And sometimes there's a lot of jealousy with that, and at late hours, and all these different things are involved with that. And again, DJing changes your relationship, and you've got to be ready for that mentally and I don't want to say physically, but to a level, because of the stress that's involved with it. So, yeah, that's a tough one for a lot of DJs, I think.
And I think it's fair to say that just because it doesn't change in the beginning doesn't mean that it won't change. Basically what, you start out and exactly as John kind of hit, your friends and stuff like that are going to be on your side, but it might be 5, 6, 7 years down the road that things really kind of start to get that different change, especially if you're like, I really want to have this event. I really want to make sure I do this one. And so you start putting more time and effort into it. And so suddenly viewpoints of priorities get pulled into question. So it's important. And I'm going to throw in one I'm going to throw my bonus one that I didn't even give you up for the list, John. Refreshing is key. Refreshing yourself, refreshing your relationship, taking a night off to get those relationships in check and to keep them in check, I think is very important, whether it's for your own body and refreshing your own self if you're single, or whether it's, those relationships with a spouse or with a loved one, just to make sure that they're important, because at some point we retire, and if they're gone, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah,
it's a very cold and lonely house.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go right from the bonus one. Refreshing is key. I typed that up quickly, so it's up on the slide there. Actually, it's on the slide right there. The slide's on that side.
Nice, John. Look at that.
Yeah, we're actually making this pretty fancy tonight. So Dan, the next one you've got is don't keep up with the Joneses in our social media world. This is a tough one.
Yeah. So it's very easy for us to see the gig logs, for us to see the photos. I mean, all of our friends, and John, you've talked about the whole idea of, you don't necessarily want your friends to follow your Facebook fan page or your business page, but we're going to follow other people. I mean, that's in some ways, that's where we get our ideas. That's where we, get our inspiration. But it's very easy for you to go, especially when you're starting out, that I want to be so-and-so. I want to be a Jason Jani. So yeah. I'm gonna, get these extravagant pieces instead of building ourselves to there, because sometimes we see the end product and we don't see the years of building and growing and investing and dedicating themselves that got them there. And we want to jump right to there.
Oh yeah.
So don't keep up with the Joneses, be careful to, try and mimic, especially, which can create other problems for us, those people that you follow on social media, just because,
Yeah, I think it's the looking for that inspiration and realizing that generally the success that you're seeing had a lot of perspiration behind it, and just accepting that we're not going to be a Jason Jani overnight. It's going to take 2 nights.
3 if you're like me.
3,
You know, hey.
maybe a long weekend. Okay, continuing on here. One of the things I didn't early on, and especially as I started to get better with the mixing and creating the atmosphere, is that you start to get that thinking that you're the rock star and that, everyone's there because of me, and everyone they're not going to have a good event unless I'm on. And it's, yes, we're important to the process, but really what we are there to do is we're there to serve, especially in a wedding DJ capacity. We're there to set things up. I like the idea of us being more of a director to a point in many cases, especially at a wedding, where we're setting things up and the spotlight is on the bride and the groom or the wedding party or the family, what have you. And I'm there to facilitate and to set them up and to do things. And there's, times I'm going to be in the spotlight for a brief period of time, but then I'm directing the attention back to them like a ringmaster would be. I'm there to do what they want, to serve and help them to have a memorable night and a memorable day. Going into the bar situation, I'm there in a little bit different capacity. Yes, I'm going to maybe be more of a personality there and maybe more of the slight rock star there, but I'm still there to serve the guests and to help them to have a fun time that they're going to forget about life for a while. That they're there to enjoy themselves, to dance and maybe have a once in a lifetime encounter that happens that night. And I'm there to help facilitate that and to let them have a good time. The idea of serving as opposed to, hey, you guys should all be worshiping me because I'm the DJ, that was part of my early days of DJing, unfortunately. And it was something that if I would have been able to not have that for a period of time, it would have made things a little bit easier as you transition along.
Well, the easiest ways to get rid of that big head is just make sure you're married. Because you come home. No, I'm just kidding. But no, in all seriousness, though, I do think one of the things that will help you even create that better repertoire with other vendors, with venues and things of that nature, is to really kind of keep that self in check. When they're talking about you're the best one we've ever seen, what you don't realize is they've been to 3 weddings in their life. Mm-hmm. But in all seriousness, so what ends up happening was, I know for me personally, when I get those types of comments, I thank them so much. I always try and actually throw it back. You guys were awesome to work with, especially, or if it's a crowd that's coming up and telling me, thank you so much. You know what? Really, the guests just made this easy for me tonight. It was a lot of fun. I just was having fun, and that's why it worked. And instead of looking at myself, and when you try and take that humble attitude, it works for 2 reasons. One, it keeps yourself in check so that you're not blowing your head up. But then it also keeps you from being arrogant to the person that just gave you that compliment. It can, because that will turn people off big time. If you're like, oh, I know, but if you thank them and really kind of just, I don't want to say downplay it, because then that puts their compliment against them and they don't like that. Yep. But you want to kind of keep it in the right light. And I think you'll get much farther, especially with the vendors that you're going to be working with. Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even touch upon, but one of our roles, especially in the wedding world, is to make the other vendors, to make the venue look good, to make the photographer, videographer, getting them in the right spot so that they can be successful. Because if they're successful and they know when we help them to be successful, and that kind of karma comes back. So yeah, we're not only there to serve our guests, but in many ways we're there to serve those vendors. I didn't even think about that angle, but that's great point, Dan. Great point indeed. Let's see. Next one, contracts you wanted to talk about. Yeah. So one of the things I think is very key when it comes to contracts is your contract needs to protect both parties. That was one thing when I got started that kind of took me out by surprise, because I was just like, well, I need to have a contract because I need to protect my butt. Yeah. No, I forget even who it was. I actually want to say it was Jeremy Jones out of Georgia. If you don't know him, look him up. Great guy. He's actually a lawyer now, but it was one of those ideas of setting up the contract in such a way that it protects both parties, so that when they sign it, they want to sign it because it not only protects you, but it protects them. So it's got both parties. But along with contracts, don't, where did I put it here? Don't use the one you found online or that your buddy gave you. Do yourself a favor and hire a lawyer to do it the right way. Because here's the thing, you use the one you found online, and what you're trying to find out is that your state has different laws than what the one that was created is, or it doesn't really protect you because of X, Y, or Z, or any other legal type of situation. So be smart about it. Find a lawyer that you know you can trust. If you want to talk to your buddy, say, hey, who would you recommend lawyer-wise? Not just give me your contract.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, there's some entertainment lawyers that I've talked to over the years and in the Minnesota area, and that's one of the things that Ken had mentioned when he spoke for one of our conventions, is that I do entertainment contracts, but I have to be up on what the contract will be like in California, as opposed to New York, as opposed to Dallas, as opposed to Minneapolis, because all of them have different state rules that affect entertainers and what they can say and do and put on a contract. So. Good point. So that was 10, and I got a couple of bonus ones here. Dan already gave a good little bonus one with his refreshing and taking time off for relationships, which probably should be one of the top ones on our list here today. Taking that time away away from the business to spend with family, which is something I've tried to do more of this spring, which has been pleasantly surprising how much I've enjoyed that. I haven't taken that time to go to some of the things that the kids have done over the years. And now as I look back, I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't, but we're having fun now with that. So
what we're saying on that, before you get to the other ones, one suggestion I would recommend is also on those nights, I don't want to say stay off of social media because we're human. We're going to be on it. Try not to look at the social media though of your friends who are DJing, because I've had those nights where I've had the night off, my wife and I are having a date night. She goes to use the bathroom. So I get out my phone and I check Facebook and instantly I'm seeing, pictures of people who are at gigs and I'm like, man, I wish I was DJing tonight.
I could be making money.
And then you're not in the right frame of mind. For
not so much. So you need to do something that you both can be involved. So you go to Facebook Marketplace and you start shopping for furniture. Okay, maybe I'm sharing too much here. Okay, bonus number 1. This is something I wish I would have learned early on, is the importance of hearing protection. Michael has acoustic filters, and I've gone out and purchased a variety of different types for him, so he can have different ones. And I use acoustic filters right now. I had some custom ones designed and such, but I found some off the shelf that work well. And if I lose them, I'm not out $200. But if you aren't using it, get yourself some good acoustic filters, not just the foam plugs, because foam plugs just muffle everything. Granted, that's better than nothing, but you need to get some decent ones that are going to bring it all down a little bit and just help your hearing. And that's something that I wish I would have learned early on, because 2 years ago, I went in and had a hearing test, and they're like, yep, we can see that you've lost some of these frequencies, but you're not bad enough where you need hearing aids yet. And it's like, what? You said something? Sorry.
I think this is also where practicing is going to come into play. Put them in at home and practice with them. I know this is one thing I still struggle with. I don't use my hearing protection. I have some nice custom molded ones that I had made. Mm-hmm. And my biggest obstacle with them, I can mix with them in like that works for me. Like I have no problem with that type of practicing. But where I have a problem is if I go to grab the microphone and make an announcement or talk or anything, I'm not sure where my volume is, because in my head, it's going to be different than what's the mic because of my earplugs. Mm-hmm. So, it's one of those things, get used to, set your system up at home and rock out with them in and get used to what that is, and record yourself on the microphone. So you get a feeling, was that a good volume? Was it not? Play it back and get a better feeling for what's really there.
Good tip. Very good point there. Because that's probably the biggest thing when I started using them and trying to, it's like, oh crap, I need to make an announcement, pop them out so then I can make an announcement and hear what I did. And after a period of time, now I don't do that anymore because I've got that feel. But early on, that was a lot of fiddling around. And the last bonus one I had is kind of a takeoff similar to Dan's when you talked about contracts are for protecting both parties. Well, insurance, we typically talk about when we're talking you need to have liability insurance, that it's something for protecting the guests and the clients, because if a speaker falls on them, you've got the money to pay so they don't have out-of-pocket expenses. I'm going to say insurance is for your protection. That's something that I wish I would have learned. Granted, I didn't get hurt or stung with this when I wasn't insured, but the idea that insurance is there to protect my assets. So if something happens and they sue, they're not going to be able to come and take away my microphone, because my microphone is a personal favorite of mine, and I absolutely love my microphone. And if they would come and take it, I would cry. But insurance, liability insurance, is there to cover their expenses if something happens that it was a result of my things, me or my things. If they sue, the insurance will cover it and take care of them. If I wouldn't have that, then they're going to sue for damages or hospital fees or doctors or missed work. And what do I have? Well, I have my house, I have my this, and I have my that, and I have my business. And all of that would be game with a good attorney on their side. And guess what? If they get hurt with a speaker falling on them, and if it looks like negligence on my side, they're going to find a dang good attorney. And I will be now homeless. So insurance is for your protection and theirs also. But really, think of it as protecting your assets and your future for $200 a year or whatever it is. I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, the cost of it by itself should almost make it like ridiculous not to have. It's not a huge buy-in. I know my first couple of years when I DJed, I didn't have insurance, and again, this was ignorance on my part. One of those things we didn't know.
Yeah.
But what I had in my mind was that it was $200 an event. Like that's one of the reasons why when I first started hearing about it, I'm like, I can't afford that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm just going to roll the dice. And I was very lucky, obviously, in those few years that I went without it. It's wicked cheap, really, when you think about it. In your entire life, you're going to pay less than what you would have to even think about, and it's a tax write-off.
There it is. It's one of your business expenses. So, gang, that is our little list that we compiled of things that we wish we would have known, or beginning DJs should know when it comes to that side of things. So, thank you guys for being with us. And if you want to be done with the content, there it was. And now we can go to the chat room and see if anyone had any questions or any feedback, because when we have all the screens open, I couldn't look at the chat room whatsoever. So
yeah, I was following along, and they had some great stuff, and so we're going to touch base on that now for some of you. So I'm going to, if you're like, well, I made a comment and they're not seeing, give us a second to get there, right? A lot of people, kind of making some great comments about, the stuff we were talking about as we were talking about sound entertainment DJs. Nice to break is always good. Absolutely. Especially as you don't realize what your busy seasons are when you get started. Like you're just like, and especially when you get started, if this is a full-time income, you're suddenly like, I've got to take everything. And then, September rolls around and you've been playing for 6 months and you're like, beat. So, let's see, where was it at here? There was another one. TM Sound. So when we were talking about, I think this was back in the BMI ASCAP, CESCAT.
Yeah.
He said, can you elaborate on when you rent the facility? I think basically what you were talking about within that regard was if you are the one that is putting on the event, you rent it, not for a wedding, right? It's not your own wedding type of thing that you're doing, but you decide that I'm going to charge a fee to get into the door. Now it's a completely different animal.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's the key thing is that fee at the door. If you're renting a venue and making money off the people coming in, that's a difference. And weddings generally are considered a private function, but they still have that power of God basically when it comes to venues. And venues have to. There was a barn I think somebody asked about the other day. If a barn who has weddings in it, do they need to have the licensing and such? Which, if they have TVs around the room, they probably do, between the TVs and the music that's being played. But the best way to do it is to reach out, because ASCAP and BMI, they have websites, they have contact information and such, so you can get a hold of them. I would much rather check and make sure from the venue side than to get all of a sudden that little notice in the mail saying, oh, you have 25 weddings a year times this many people times your floor space times your TV's placed times the music we think you played, and you owe us $127,000. Thanks. It's happened.
One of the cool things actually that Pennsylvania does is the ASCAP BMI, at least, are tied into their liquor license.
Oh, that's
Don't
interesting.
know exactly the logistics of that, but when I was doing promotions for a bar-ish nightclub, bar with a dance floor, we'll call it, that was one of the things that I learned. I was like, really? So that's actually kind of cool, because then it's one less thing that the venue has to worry about, and it's one thing they really can't cheat their way around.
Yeah, that is a neat idea.
Now that was 10 years ago, so I'm not sure if anything has changed over the time, but I know at least at one point that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. There was another question I thought that jumped in. Is it, so this was, I'm not even sure where we were talking, maybe about the, be careful of the big heads. Is it better to be a wedding entertainment director?
Wedding entertainment director, for those of you who aren't familiar with that, was a trademarked name that Peter Mary created, the Wedding Entertainment Director Guild or whatever he did, based on his book, the book that he wrote. And he created this little association, for lack of a better way to describe it, of higher end wedding entertainers who are wedding entertainment directors, who would go then and be on his website and become this more exclusive referral type network, what have you. It was a prestige badge you could put on your different things, and they had where you would go and you'd have to fill out some paperwork and fill out some application things to apply, and there would be some mentoring and get you there, and you'd eventually be accepted. That went for a while. Then it was kind of starting to dwindle. And then it was sold to the ADJA, and it was under the ADJA banner for a couple of years. And it has recently been given back to Peter and Liz to work and run, deal with, what have you. So it's kind of become kind of a defunct group. There are still some people involved with it, but I believe that the original people that were involved, some are there, some are not, and there's just a whole different world with that. So is it something? It never turned out to be what Peter was initially hoping it would be, and he was hoping that would become this entity that would grow and become big, and it would really help to promote his book and to help move him into a higher level of becoming an advocate for the industry, a voice for the industry, a face for the industry. And his ultimate goal at that time was he wanted to be on Oprah. Was kind of the running joke, but it was he would have loved to have been on Oprah to talk about wedding entertainers at her show or on her show. So, is it better to be that? I don't think it matters in this day and age right now. There's no benefit to it beyond maybe learning a little bit from some of the other folks there, but there's so much educational content out there right now and so many different things you can do. And I know it sounds like, but you'd be better off becoming a DJ Vault member with Joe Bunn or a DJNTV Insider for usable things right at this particular moment for your business.
Definitely wouldn't just call yourself that. I don't think that's what he was getting at, but
yeah.
Don't add that title. And keep in mind, I think we were talking, there was something that we were talking about that could have tied into the idea of directing, the day, and being
And you
so,
don't want to use that name because again, it is a trademarked, because they just refiled the trademark papers here a couple of months ago. So, and they've done some cease and desist for people who have that. So,
brand of acoustic filters. You mentioned that you use.
Okay.
Have you done any reviews? I feel like MJ did at one point a couple that he has.
Yeah, he did. He did with his. I have got one of my set is from the headphone company Vomoda. Vomoda had a $20 version that I used that one. That's in my bag, and then I have some. Oh, I don't remember the brand name, but they're in a little metal tube. They're plastic and they're kind of a cone shaped, and they have a little plastic grab, a little thing on there, and you can change the insert that goes inside it. You can go from whatever dB to whatever dB, but I think there was 3 different ones, and those were just an Amazon purchase. I don't remember the brand name on those, but if you start looking and you'll see where it's a little metal tube and it's this little plastic clear little like a Christmas tree type of thing. And it's got a little plastic tab to hold it, and then where you can change the acoustic filter in it. And I think I've got 4 different versions of those, and they all act pretty much the same.
I don't remember what mine is. I took a quick look behind me to see if my bag was with me, and it's not. So I got mine. One year I went to the DJ Expo, and there happened to be a company, I wouldn't say it was based out of Chicago, that was doing ear molds. And it was one of those things I'm like, you know what? I'm going to drop the money. And it was great. And I've used them. But again, that's right. I just got to get comfortable either taking them out to do the announcements or just learning to keep them in. It's been such a hard transition, and talking to other DJs, and John, you mentioned it too, you got to do it, because in the end, that's what's important, is your hearing.
Yeah, it is, especially when you have young ones and young children who speak in that higher pitched, a little bit softer voice, and you can't hear them quite as well as you like.
Suggestions for good insurance. I hate to say this, but it's almost like the Serato versus virtual DJ.
Good way to
because you're going to find some that like this, you're going to find some that like that. Some people say, well, this is cheaper. Yeah, but then they don't give you good coverage. There's guys that will say, the local groups will give you the best. I would say do your research, because depending upon what you're looking for and depending upon what level of your business that you have, will determine what group will help you the best. And there are some different ones. So NAM offers one version. ADJ works with RV Nuvio. And so those are like some of the ones that you'll hear more often, because they are catered to our industry, or they've set up some good deals for our industry. I'll at least say that way. So definitely, do some research and take everything you hear into consideration with what you have and where you're planning to go, at least within the next year, while you still have that insurance. So
sounds good. Yeah, there's a lot of different companies out there. Like Scott has I believe that's Brown & Brown is a local or regional or somewhere local to him, and you can get firemen's policies and Federated carries up here, and I think there's like 6 different companies. When we first started, nobody would touch because it was an inland marine policy is what we had to have, and no one would touch that back in the day. But now there's much more options out there. And there's insurance available for if you're doing just one event, or if you're doing just 1 month, or if you're buying it by the year. So,
absolutely.
Well, Dan, I think we've almost come to the end of our time tonight.
We have.
We had a good list. You guys we had some good feedback and chat in the chat room tonight. So, and we didn't send them away screaming. So we were successful.
And only 4 thumbs down. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was switching accounts and thumbs down, just just because we had.
You would.
So wrap us up, Dan. Take us home.
So on that note, thank you very much once again for tuning in. Again, you guys really make this worthwhile. You make this a lot of fun, and I love watching the comments in the chat room just to see what you may be feeling at the moment to what we're saying. But again, thank you very much for tuning in. I want to encourage you to check out some of the shows that we've got coming up this week. A lot of great content. If you're not on the Insider setup to be able to find out what shows are coming up, you just happen to check us out on YouTube one time and you're like, oh, I want to see what's going on. Get on that list, djntv.com/insider. If nothing else, at least get on the email list so you know about the shows that are coming, so you can check them out when you can. Next Monday, we probably should have talked about this beforehand. Memorial Day, next Monday.
Yeah.
Are we here? Are we recovering from our sunburn that we're going to get?
That's a tough question, because we'll have to see what Shaney's got, because she might, Shaney typically will, if she had to skip a Monday, she comes back and she's got a fire and a passion. So we may not be able to keep Shaney away for 2 weeks. So we'll know by Thursday. Thursday, we'll talk to Shaney and see how things are going. And it'll be in Thursday's email and, of course, in Sunday's email that'll be coming out.
There you go. So basically stay informed, and then you'll find out what's coming up. If we do see you on Monday, great. We'll see you in a week. And if not, we will see you soon. Thank you once again. Have a good night.